Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Falkirk Planning Committee being held within Grangemouth Community Education Centre, 6971 Abbotts Road, Grangemouth, on Wednesday, the 11th of February at 10 a.m. This meeting will be conducted both online and in person in accordance with Section 43 of the Local Government Scotland Act 2003. And this meeting will be live streamed on YouTube. No. At www.falkirk.gov.uk/live. I'm convener of the committee, Councillor Alf Kelly, and the other members of the committee will introduce themselves, starting with Deputy Convener, Mr. Councillor.
Yeah, Councillor Ian Sinclair, Deputy Convener.
Councillor James Kerr, part of the Planning Committee.
Councillor Gordon Forrest, Lord Braes Ward.
Thank you. And online, Councillors Provost. Okay.
I'm staff convener, Councillor Gary Bowes, a member of the committee.
Anyone else?
Councillor Jim Flynn, member of the committee.
Councillor Fiona Cawley, member of the committee.
Yeah. And Provost.
Member of the committee.
Thanks very much, Paul. And in the room we have officers. Julie.
Julie Seidel, Planning.
Kevin Brown, Planning.
Bernard Whittle, Planning.
And Richard Broadley, Planning.
Douglas Blythe, Legal Services.
I'm Colin Moody, the Council's Chief Governance Officer.
Arlene Fraser, Committee Services Officer.
Gemma MacArthur, Committee Services Officer.
Okay, thank you. We're following with the microphones there, possibly because okay. Yeah.
Oh, that's it.
Okay, it seems to be back on again. Sorry. Now to the business. We have other officers online for support if we need them. Now to the business of the meeting. We have several deputations today, and the committee will decide on each as they come up on the agenda. Can we apologies, Mr. Moody?
Thank you, Convener. We have apologies from Councillor Anslow, from Bailey Buchanan, and also from Councillor Murtagh.
Thank you. So now we'll go to the business of the meeting. Have we any declarations of interest? Members should declare any financial and non-financial interest they have in any item of business at the meeting. Identify
And that's called losing the vim, isn't it? .5 minutes to grab a cup of tea, everyone.
Switch it off and put it back on again.
Wee bit. It's still recording, just to be clear.
Yeah, still live streaming.
Hello again, everyone. Sorry, we had a bit of a technical problem there. On declarations of interest, members should declare any financial and non-financial interest they have in any item of business at the meeting, identifying the relevant agenda item and the nature of the interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? No, thank you. Okay, we move on to item 3, the minute of the meeting of the Planning Committee held on the 14th of January 2026. Are there any questions regarding the minute? Can we agree the minute?
No, Provost.
Oh, sorry, Provost. Provost Bissett?
Convener, just to say, I did send my apologies for the last meeting, but they weren't recorded for some reason.
Okay, thanks. That will change the minute to show that you did send in your apologies. Thanks very much. Other than that, we can agree the minute. Okay, I'll move to item 4, which is P//21/0717/PPP, development of land for residential use at the land to the north of 1 Kingsheath Place, Glendevon Drive, Madison, for Manus Forest Limited. And this is a continuation from 2 months ago. We have a request for a deputation from Mr. Ewan Pearson, agent. Be happy to accept the deputation. Okay, thank you. Officer Kevin Brown will present the updated report.
Thank you, Convener. This is a major application seeking planning permission in principle for the development of land for residential use at land to the immediate north of Clook Place, Gannell Drive and Kingsheath Place in Maddiston. The application is before Planning Committee as it represents a significant departure from the development plan owing to the scale of development proposed on an unallocated site outside of the village limits and within the countryside. Members will recall that this application has previously been the subject of 2 separate predetermination hearings, the most recent of which was held on the 9th of October 2024. and that the application was also previously sisted pending the outcome of the Moss End appeal case. Details of this case and information provided following the predetermination hearings are summarised within paragraphs 2.2 to 2.6 of the main report. This application has generated 235 representations, which are summarised within paragraph 6.2 of the main report, and members will see that the consultation process has not generated any formal objections from any consultees. Details of the consultation responses are set out within paragraphs 4.1 to 4.11. In terms of policy assessment, what I would say here is that the submission of additional information from the applicants following requests at previous predetermination hearings has now addressed previous outstanding matters relating to transport assessment, ecology surveys and coal mining risk. The policy assessment set out in paragraphs 7A4 to 7A19 of the main report ultimately concludes that the proposal is contrary to the development plan policies relating to new unplanned growth within the countryside, specifically policies 17 rural development and 16 quality homes of NPF 4 and P14 countryside HCO5 housing in the countryside of Falkirk Local Development Plan 2. Scottish Government's position in respect of the housing emergency is set out within paragraph 7B4 to 7B5 and is supported by the outcome of the Moss End appeal decision referred to in paragraph 2.2. This ultimately reinforces the primacy of the development plan and emphasises a need for a plan-led and coordinated approach to development. The application before members today is not supported by the development plan, is premature and runs the risk of undermining and complicating the ongoing development plan review process. The officer recommendation to committee is therefore to refuse planning permission for the reasons outlined in today's report. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Kevin. Are there any questions to the officer? Bailey Buchanan.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, just a simple question, Kevin. On your summary there regarding the local development plan, has this site been put forward for submission for the next local development plan?
Yes, I believe so. This site and a number of other sites in the surrounding area are part of the submissions as part of the LDP3 process at the moment.
Okay. Any other questions to the officer? No? Okay, sorry,
just to clarify, Convener, that we would have another opportunity to put questions to the officer following the deputations.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. The officer will have a chance to answer and then make a question after that. Okay, thanks very much. So now can we have the deputation, please? Mr. Pearson. Hi, Mr. Pearson. Could you just introduce yourself for the public? Yeah.
Is it on?
Sorry.
Is it on?
Yep.
Okay. Just as right. Yeah, good morning. Ewan Pearson here, agent for the applicant. You'll remember I was here 16 months ago when we had a predetermination hearing. But we still don't have a proposed local development plan in that 16 months. And Mr. Brown puts much reliance on sites going through that process rather than elected members granting permissions. And we also don't have an up-to-date housing land audit, which is quite fundamental considering there's a housing emergency. Anyway, crack on. There's two reasons for refusal. I'm going to start with the second one. Mr. Brown asserts that any opportunities for expansion in Maddiston are a matter for the next local development plan. Yeah, that was fine to say that in 2024, but this is now 2026. 16 months have gone by. The council's evidence report has been approved by Scottish ministers That was a year ago, and you did, as we've heard, have your call for sites in the spring last year. So where is this local development plan? The current plan was approved in 2020, and we're now into the 6th year of the cycle, so we should have a local development plan. There isn't one, so what we're asking the committee to do now is bring forward sites to meet the supply by granting planning permission. As we heard, the Scottish Ministers declared a housing emergency in 2024, and they made it clear that all councils are to be ambitious and to deliver land in excess of the minimum. That is the minimum all-tenure housing land requirement, MATHLR. So they've set a figure, the Scottish Ministers, for 5,250 units. So where is this land? It's not in the local development plan, and we don't have a local development plan. Where is this land coming from? The 5,000 figure is for the period 24 to 34. It's not covering the period for the local development plan, which ended in 2025. And because of this, the National Planning Framework, which is part of the development plan, Policy 16F supports proposals for new housing on unallocated land, but as your report tells you, only in very limited circumstances. But I do believe that we are in such circumstances. If I can go back to the first reason for refusal, the officer says the proposal is contrary to policies PE14 HCO5 of the local development plan. PE14 and HCO5 are about development in the countryside. So there's absolutely no way this proposal can comply with those policies. This land is in the countryside. There's no dubiety about it. So therefore, de facto, it doesn't comply with the supplementary guidance anyway. But as we said, the development plan also includes a national planning framework, which in fact is a later document, and where there's conflict, it has to take primacy. But the officers identified two policies of the framework, 17 and 16. But policy 17 doesn't apply because that only relates to rural areas, and clearly Maddiston, by no stretch of the imagination, is in a rural area. So it's all down to policy 16, which I mentioned earlier, where housing can be granted on unallocated sites in special circumstances. So if I can quickly look at the three qualifying circumstances. Firstly, is there an agreed timescale for the build-out? Yes, Bellway Homes is the front runner for this site, and it says it can complete 30 to 50 units a year. That includes the affordable, of which there's 25%. Secondly, is there consistency with the spatial strategy, other policies, and the 20-minute neighbourhood concept? Yes. Maddiston is an expansion area, and this site is actually closer to everyday facilities than some of the sites in the 2020 LDP. And then thirdly, and this is the complicated one, is there a housing land pipeline? And if so, is the council delivering earlier than planned? Yes, there is a pipeline, from what I can see. What's in the pipeline, however, is very unclear. Officers have not published annual housing land audits. Perhaps the pipeline only has enough land until 2025. The pipeline should have land until 2034. However, it's my observation, irrespective of all the auditing pipes trends, that the issue facing the council is where is the land going to come from to meet the MATHLR. So if you grant planning permission in principle today, you're starting to meet that requirement. In the hearing, we talked about the site having a notional capacity of 200, of which 50 would be affordable, and that's only 3.8% of the MATHLR So we're not talking about a scale of development that would compromise what comes forward in the proposed local development plan, if that ever comes forward. So in concluding, Falkirk needs housing, lots of it. There is a housing emergency. There's no proposed local development plan, and this is an inadequate response to what is a serious societal problem. If you grant planning permission for 200 units on this site, you as elected politicians will be delivering and people will see that.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Are there any questions to Mr. Pearson? No questions? Okay, thanks very much for your submission. We go back to Officer Brown, please.
Yep, I was going to say we have Alistair Shaw on the call on the line today as well from our local plans team. It's perhaps worthwhile Alistair coming in to respond to some of the points made in respect of the housing land supply issues. If that's okay.
Okay, thank you, Alistair.
Thanks, convener. Yeah, so happy to provide some information on land supply. We do have a housing land audit that is published and renewed every year. The current audit, which I think was published back in around March time, shows that we've got a land supply of about 5,860 units, deliverable units, of which 3,445 are consented. And if we include the constrained sites, so there are a number of sites that do have difficulties, that total rises to 7,540. So we do have a substantial supply of land for housing. Much of it consented, and it's laid out in much of it is in the local development plan, which is still relevant. Local Development Plan 2, and is programmed in that housing land audit.
Thank you. Can I just ask you, there's land coterminous with this site to the east. Is that land is being allocated for housing already in that area? Kevin.
Sorry, I have a plan that could perhaps show that for committee. If you, Jim, I don't know if you could bring up. There's a document referred to called Maddiston Park Hall LDP2 allocations. It's in the folder. Yeah, that's the one. Thank you, Gemma. Yeah, just for context, the site in yellow is the application site. The red sites that you see are the current allocated housing sites. The ones with yellow marks on them are the current allocated housing sites which haven't yet been built out.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions to the officer? Sorry, I just Bailey, yeah.
Thanks, convener. So, Mr. Shaw, you mentioned a number of units. That's the yearly audit, and you mentioned constrained sites. Have some of these sites been in for a long time, or are they just for LDP 2? Because if we've got sites that's not going to be delivered. And I know we've not got a crystal ball to say that they can be or can't be. However, if we've got sites that's allocated in the local development plan and we are struggling to deliver them, that takes up the allocation for sites that's not in the local development plan regarding schooling, regarding health. So my question is, are these sites been in for a long time? That's my first question. Thanks.
Sorry.
Thanks, convener. So we do a review of all the sites in each LDP cycle. So we review their effectiveness, their deliverability, and sometimes sites get taken out of the plan because they're not viewed as being deliverable. So there are some sites that have been in for a while, but even sites that have been in for quite a long time, the plan for a long time, they can be made effective. And there are examples of that. I'm thinking of the Denny-Lone Head site, which has recently commenced development, a very large site that's been in the plan for quite a long time. But sometimes, particularly for large sites, it takes a while for the constraints to be unlocked. So yeah, some sites in the plan have been in there for a while. Some are newer. But what the point, I think the main point I would want to make is that each year we do the housing land audit and we make an assessment of deliverability through that process, and that's informed by what the developers of the sites are telling us. And as I say, to reiterate the figures, you know, we reckon that about 5,800 are deliverable, and that's the additional quantity. So the 7,540, which includes the constrained sites. So we recognise that there are sites in the plan, and indeed sites in the audit that are not currently programmed and not and viewed as having constraints that you know, that really we can't count them against the supply essentially. But as I say, the 5,800, those are proven sites and deliverable sites.
Thank you, Alistair. Barry Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. And just that, I know you sent out a plan for a local development plan 3. It's just that has been highlighted this morning by Mr. Pearson regarding we don't have a local development plan, and I know it takes time. Can you tell me when the sites that has been put forward will be, or what the next stage is, please?
Okay. Right. Thanks, Convener. So we have a programme for LDP3, and in fact, there's a report going up to the Council Executive next week that's that is reviewing that reviews that programme. We're expecting to get a proposed plan by the end of this year, right? So we've been through, as I think Mr. Pearson indicated, we've been through the evidence report stage. We got that through the gate check. And the next stage is preparing this proposed plan, which will have proposed sites for development. So that'll be around the end of this year. We then have to go through various processes of representations to the plan, potential modifications that the council might make in response to those representations, and then an examination process that basically looks at all the unresolved issues arising out of the consultation, and thereafter we can adopt the plan. So at the moment it's the first half of 2028 that we expect to have an adopted plan. So still a little way off, but it is a long and convoluted process.
Yeah, thank you. Barry Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. I'll maybe come back in the officers once colleagues have had that opportunity.
No problem there. Councillor Sinclair, take the name first.
Thank you, Convener. Just probably just a couple of quick questions, if they are quick. Just to clarify, the current local development plan LDP2 is still live. Kevin.
Yes, it's still a live document. Yeah.
So this is obviously planning permission in principle. So we're deciding the principle of development on that site when there are sites around about this that are currently within the LDP that haven't been delivered on yet. I wonder if anything could be said about the current sites that we saw in the plan earlier on as to whether any of those are considered to be not deliverable.
Sure.
Happy to address that, Convener. So I think the sites have been hanging around for quite a long time. I think in particular there's a site to the south at Torraven Farm that I think is not programmed, so it's not considered to be deliverable at the present time. But we know that fresh representations have been made on that through the LDP3 process, trying to demonstrate that it is deliverable. So I think it's it's quite a hard call whether something is deliverable or not. There's many factors involved in that, and certainly the other sites in the vicinity of the application site have been allocated for quite a long time, and they clearly have some issues. But we think they're probably certainly the ones immediately adjacent probably are still deliverable. I haven't got before me the housing audit that could actually demonstrate whether they're actually programmed in at the moment. I'd need to have a look at that.
Okay, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you, Convener. It's just to clarify the Torraven site that Alistair mentioned there is that there's recently been submission of a proposal of application notice for that site, which is with us for consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Sinclair.
Okay, thanks. That gives me some reassurance about the current sites in the current local development plan. I suppose turning to the next iteration of the local development plan, LDP3, Mr. Shaw, you mentioned a report that's up at committee next week. Could you, and I know that you've kind of demonstrated the timeline, the timescale, in terms of the decisions for sites. There has been a call for sites that's been made, that's been received. The decision for sites, that can you advise where that decision rests? Is that with planning committee or is that with another committee of the council?
No, so through you, Convener, the decisions on the local development plan are made by full council.
Thanks, Convener. That's my questions for now, but I might come back in for other officers soon.
Certainly. Thank you. Councillor Bowes.
Thank you, Convener. It's similar lines. I think they may have been answered, so Alistair, I apologise in advance if they have been completely answered. But it's already been established that the application is contrary to the current LDP2. LDP2 was established. The client's representative stated it was 2020. I think. I'm a wee bit confused. I know it's alive. So LDP2, how many years does that last for? When was it actually established? And is it time barred or is it just inactive over a certain amount of period? I appreciate that Alistair's already said LDP3 will be 2028 before it will be. I take it that's before it will be fully. That will be our local development plan.
Again, through you, Convener. Yeah, there is. It's not LDP2 is as Kevin said earlier. It's an active plan. It's not time barred. It doesn't become invalid after 5 years. It has it set out detailed proposals for a 10-year period and a vision for 20 years. So it is still very much live. There's a lot of proposals in there still to be delivered. There are proposals coming forward at the moment. Sites, some of the big sites that were allocated that in that plan are only just getting going. So very much still an active plan. In terms of the, yeah, sure.
When you go.
Thank you. Alistair. Councillor Bounce.
Yeah, can I just say that's the important part, that it's still active. It didn't run out in 2025, and it's still an active plan, because I think it was suggested that it ran out last year, and that sort of confirmed something for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sinclair.
Thanks, Convener. With your indulgence, one of the other things that I'm kind of interested to hear from officers is around about the principle of planning-led development. We've already heard that there are other sites very close to this site that are within the local development plan, but if officers could perhaps outline and explain the risks of adding to what is already a very busy area without that plan-led approach.
Thank you. Who would like to? Mr. Brown.
Yeah, I suppose that there's quite a few risks there if it's not a plan-led approach. I mean, obviously, through education and NHS and various other elements, there's projections made about how many houses will be coming forward in which areas at which time. So it complicates matters for consideration of these elements, and could cause quite a bit of extra work for those individual elements as well. So there's a risk there. The local development plan looks at a number of different factors in allocating sites, whether it's transport links, sustainability, ecology. There's all sorts goes in there, and there's a danger that doing it in a piecemeal fashion leads to lesser quality developments ultimately in the long run.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions to the officer? Billy Kerr.
Thanks, Convener. So, turning that question that Councillor Sinclair mentioned about a risk of adding that site to what's already there. What if the rest of the sites didn't come forward and we have an opportunity to bring housing in that can be delivered? So does that give a risk for our allocation for this local development plan?
I think that's you use the phrase "what if" there, sort of thing, and that's really the key here. It's the local development plan is there to try and give a degree of certainty as to how we're going to develop out land across the district to meet various housing targets and so on. That is the best approach we've got in terms of making sure that that's done in a strategic and planned way. It's not possible for us to, I suppose, predict categorically whether or not certain individual sites will be developed at a particular period in time, but that's the best mechanism we've got for doing that.
Thanks, Kevin. The only reason that I mentioned it, excuse me, and I've mentioned it in the nearly 9 years I've been involved in this committee. For the 59 sites that was brought forward to the local development plan 2, 53 of them were carried forward from local development plan 1. And that's the reason I asked the question about deliverability. If we are trying to reach the targets and understand Mr. Shaw's synopsis of delivering some of these sites, and some of them are got constraints, and as I already highlighted, the one at Denlon Head had been long before I joined the council, and before the local development plan, and it's just now coming to fruition to start building, and understand that. But we are in a crisis of housing. So that's the reason I asked the question is we are trying to deliver houses, we're trying to deliver social housing on top of that. But I'm happy your answer, Kevin. What if I understand that? Understand. You've, as I said before, you've not got a crystal ball. However, I'm just putting it to the rest of the members of the committee that we as a committee need to look at all aspects. My second question, and I thought it was very advantageous to go to the last site visit to see the surrounding area. So that roundabout that's at the end, do we know who put that roundabout in? Because it looks as if it's there for the future development. So do we know who put that roundabout in? Kevin, that's my first question.
Yep. The history to that roundabout is contained within the report. I believe it was put in by the current applicant. The history to the decision around that roundabout, it was a recommendation to refuse planning permission for that roundabout. It was determined by planning committee to grant planning permission for it. So I don't have any records that I could find in my research there as to quite why that application was put in. That's not something I've got information on, I'm afraid.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. It just seems that maybe people before we were on the committees put forward something that we are not aware of. Thanks, convener.
Thank you. Councillor Forrest.
Thanks, convener. It's something that Bailey Kerr's just said about this roundabout. That is still the only anticipated road into this site. Am I correct?
Stephen?
Yes, it is. I was going to say we've got, I think Matthew from Transport Planning is on the call. Perhaps worthwhile Matthew being on.
Matthew?
Hi there. Yes, so is the current that Glendevin Drive and the roundabout is the main access and will be the open access. There'll also be we've also requested a condition for an emergency access onto Eccleton Road, which will obviously need looked at in detail. We tried to have discussions with the applicant around the detail of that. However, they were keen just to have that as a condition, so that's how it sits in the report. So yeah, the original LDP had talked about a through road to the 801. However, through our transport assessment process, we had the applicant had done a transport assessment, and the outcome of that was that the road, Glendevin Drive and the roundabout with the main road is suitable to support the development, and the Eccleton Road connections just for resilience if there's issues with Glendevin Drive or any of the other roads on the entrance there.
Thanks. It's just one thing sticks in my mind. I thought that any development that had 200 or more houses had to have more than one entrance exit.
So in the previous guidance that we had, has probably been about 7 to 10 years ago now, that there was strict numbers in terms of how much development can be accessed off of a single access. However, there's no hard and fast rule now. Our roads development control team have certain opinions on it, and that feeds into that resilience aspect of having the emergency access. So Yeah, there's no current guidance that stipulates specific numbers of single accesses.
Yeah, I know Nicolton Road, and I know that there would have to be a heck of a lot of work done for it to be any good as an emergency access. But thank you for that just now.
Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor. Kevin, no right.
Thanks, convener. It was just really to clarify for the benefit of members that it's a planning permission in principle application that's before us today. So we don't have a level of detail that would flesh out all those issues in respect of exact access points, exact emergency access routes, these sorts of things. Those would need to come at a further application.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions to the officer? No? Okay then. We'll open it up to members for discussion on the application now. Are we happy with what we've heard? Okay, thank you. The recommendation is that the committee refuse planning permission in principle for the reasons on page 65. This proposal does not meet the criteria for housing in the countryside. I'm happy to read it out if necessary. Is anyone of a contrary position? No. So okay then. So we accept the recommendation. Oh, sorry, Bailey Kerr.
Thanks, convener. The proposal that's put forward, and I understand Mr. Shaw is regarding the local development plan, and Mr. Brown regarding it being premature. I think that we as a local authority need to make sure that we give serious consideration to all applications that come in, whether they're in the local development plan or not, because we are in a housing crisis. And what I would like, if it goes that this is refused, I would like that at the next stage of the local development plan, that the area where this particular application is, there is a large amount of allocated sites in that area. So if it doesn't go ahead today, that as a master plan, that whoever owns the rest of them can maybe speak to Mr. Shaw and try and bring something forward that would benefit education, that would benefit sport and leisure, that would benefit the National Health Service, because we get to a situation where there's loads of houses getting put up and everybody keeps on talking about the infrastructure. So if there's an opportunity and a possibility that these all can be included in a master plan for that area, I would encourage that, convener.
Thank you, Councillor. You don't have any amendment or other motion? No?
I could be devil's advocate and say I propose that we accept it. However, listening to the rest of the committee, I don't think it's worth.
Okay, thank you. That's worth obliged. And I'm sure the the officers will take on the points that you've made about future planning there. Thanks very much for your time. So can we move on then to item 5? Item 5, P21 stroke 0566 forward stroke FUL, erection of 228 dwelling houses with associated infrastructure, landscaping and engineering works at Site A, Mydub Farm, Glasgow Road, Denny, FK6 5JU for Avant Homes and Calendar Estates. And this is a continuation from last month. It's page 55 to 78. Sorry. Councillor Sinclair.
It was just to make sure that that last one was the officer's recommendations were agreed, because I'm not clear that the question was put forward following Bailey Kerr's intervention there.
Okay, okay, then can we go back to the previous item 4? Are we agreed that the officer's recommendations are accepted?
Agreed.
Thank you. Agreed. Okay then, official, that's agreed. Thank you very much for that, Councillor. Sorry, we were on that. Yeah. So we have for this one a deputation request from Mr. Nelson, Mr. Salter, and Mr. Burrell. Are we happy to hear the deputation? No objections. Okay, thank you. Officer Kevin Brown again will present the report.
Thank you, Convener. This is again a major application seeking detailed planner permission for the erection of 228 dwelling houses on land at Mydub Farm, Glasgow Road, Denny, with vehicular access to the site proposed to be taken from the new Denny Eastern Access Road. The application is before members today following a call-in request by Bailey Buchanan to allow members to consider matters in relation to schools intake, NHS services and road safety. And it's probably worth my while stating at this point that we've got officers on the call, including individuals from NHS who will be able to take questions on those aspects when required. Members will see in section 4 of the main report there that there are no objections arising from the consultation process. You'll see within the policy assessment that a variety of developer contributions are requested. These are summarised fully within the officer recommendation section and 9 of the main report. But you'll see that these include contributions towards schooling, NHS capacity and towards Denny Eastern Access Road itself. The application has generated 4 representations, 3 in objection and 1 in support of the application. These are summarised in paragraph 6.1 and addressed in full in 7B4 to 7B10. And in terms of policy assessment, the proposal is assessed as being in accordance with the development plan. The site is allocated for housing within LDB2. The officer recommendation to committee is that the committee should be minded to grant, subject to the suitable planning obligation to secure the obligations required. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Are there any questions to Kevin at present? No. Okay, thank you. Then we'll hear from the deputation, please. Morning, gentlemen. Welcome. Could you identify yourselves and your position, please?
Sure. My name is Stuart Salter. I'm planning consultant. I'm acting on behalf of Avant Homes. Duncan Birrell. Duncan Birrell, Modus Transport Solutions, traffic and transport for the client.
I'm Michael Nelson, Land and Planning Manager at Avant Homes.
Okay, thank you, gents. Could you give your submissions, please? You have 10 minutes. Sorry, you have 10 minutes between you, so you can either share it or just one person talk.
I think I'll take the lead initially. I think, and then
okay, thank you.
So, good morning. I'm Stuart Salter of Geddes Consulting, acting on behalf of the applicant Avant Homes. We welcome the recommendation before you today to grant planning permission for this proposal. The site is allocated for residential development, forming part of the council's approved development strategy for around 10 years. The council's adopted local development plan identifies the site as H32 MIDUB 2, forming part of the Denny South East Strategic Growth Area, which also includes H31 MIDUB 1, MU09 Broad Street, and H30 former Denny High School. National Planning Framework 4 is explicit in its support for sites that are allocated for development, and also encourages an infrastructure first approach to land use planning. Local infrastructure improvement have been necessary to support the scale of growth proposed by the council for the Denny South East Strategic Growth Area. As Kevin has discussed, those infrastructure improvements have included the construction of the Denny Eastern Access Road, the increased capacity at Denny Cross Medical Practice, and extensions to Denny and Headamere Primary Schools, with additional capacity potentially needed at Denny High School. The council's expectation is that those infrastructure improvements are to be funded by developer contributions from sites allocated in the local development plan, such as the site that is before us today. At the Planning Committee meeting on the 14th of January, members requested that the application be delayed to undertake a site visit, allow officers to provide additional information in relation to school and NHS services. A topic earlier on today, the council has published its housing land audit and programmes MIDUB 2 to be built over the next 5 to 6 years, with completion due by 2032. In terms of school infrastructure, the impacts associated with the programming of these new homes has already been considered by the council as part of its school role projections, and this was confirmed in the published education capacity statement. NHS Forth Valley have also considered the programming presented in the housing land audit and determined that the reconfiguration of Denny Cross Medical Practice is capable of addressing the scale of growth set out in the Denny South East Strategic Growth Area. So the impacts arising from MIDUB 2, this planning application, have been assessed and addressed by the council and NHS Forth Valley. The applicant has agreed to undertake planning obligation to contribute to the already committed infrastructure delivered and paid for by the council, as well as further mitigation proposed. The applicant agrees with the proposed heads of terms as set out in the report of handling, and will begin preparation of the Section 75 agreement alongside officers. The applicant agrees to the proposed planning conditions, which fully address the matters raised during the 5-year determination period. The applicant would also like to thank officers for the due diligence and collaboration during that time, particularly yourself, Kevin. In summary, the application is to build houses on a site allocated for residential development. The proposal is supported by both the adopted local plan and National Planning Framework 4. There are no material considerations that warrant a refusal of planning permission. The committee will note that the declared housing emergency is a material consideration in the determination of planning applications for housing. The applicant welcomes your support in granting planning permission for a proposal that is key to the council's adopted development strategy. Thank you for your time. My colleague Duncan Burrow is available should the committee wish to discuss any matters on transport.
Thank you for that. Do either of you wish to make any submission? No, quite happy. Okay. Are there any questions to the deputation? No? No. Okay, thanks very much for your submissions, gents. Back to Officer Brown. Is there any comments you wish to make on that submission?
No comments to that.
Okay, thanks very much. Are there any questions from the committee to Officer Brown? Councillor Sinclair.
Sorry, not so much questions. I'd like to kind of chat about the site visit we had on Monday and what I seen myself. But it wasn't a question, it was just for coming in.
Right, so leave that for when we're finished discussing. So is it, I would like to ask the I think it's Mr. Teed for education. How many children do we expect out of that this site to be going to the two schools, Headamere and Denny Primary? And if you could just elaborate on what the school intake is at the moment, or the school capacity compared with the intake. Mr. Teague.
Okay. Thanks, convener. Yes, based on the number of houses proposed, and this is a detailed plan and application, so we know pretty much how many houses are going to be delivered. We would expect 73 children, based on our kind of average ratios, to attend Denny Primary School from this development alone, and Denny High School 34 children. Obviously, it's more of an impact on the local primary, but with the high school, bear in mind there's quite a pace of development and large sites happening across the whole area. So collectively, it adds to that pressure. And also 23 children to early years provision, 3 and 4, which is the statutory early years provision. The current capacity at Denny Primary School is the current capacity without the mobile classrooms is 269 pupils. Now those modular classrooms are getting old now, so we want to replace them. We're currently at 324 pupils at Denny Primary School, and that puts the occupancy at 120%. The school's not bursting at the seams because we do have that modular accommodation to take the pressure off. But when you look at the bricks and mortar capacity of the school, it is over capacity, and we would be looking to remove the modular classrooms and replace them with a bricks and mortar extension. And planning is already underway to start to deliver that. This site's not alone. There's another active site that's in the local development plan that's of a similar size, opposite Denny High School. So we're looking at the collective pressure that we would expect from these developments if they're approved.
Okay, thanks very much for that. MD Sinclair.
Thank you, convener. I suppose at the last committee meeting we had some questions around about NHS Forth Valley and their requirements for contributions where this is concerned. I can see obviously there is now a letter, but I see that we have colleagues from NHS Forth Valley on the meeting today, and I wonder if I could just maybe ask them to put on record by a question. Within your letter it suggests that and through you, convener, within the letter it suggests that the levels being sought are £123,245, and within the report the contributions that's required suggest that that is exactly what will be contributed through condition. I wonder if colleagues can from NHS Forth Valley and perhaps the Health and Social Care Partnership, if they have an insight into this too, can reassure the committee that suggestion, those figures are satisfactory for the requirements of NHS Forth Valley, and how we go about figuring those figures out and figuring out the capacity at the GP surgeries for these types of developments within the plan.
Thank you. I think Louise McCallum would be suitable to answer that. Or Tom, Mr. Cowan. Tom.
If I may, convener, through yourself, in response to that specific question, that is not our understanding of the kind of questions we would be in a position to answer this morning. The formula that relates to the contributions is actually done by the Estates Division, and the letter you have in front of you is in fact from the Director of Facilities, Morag Farka. So in terms of the formula used to calculate what the contribution ought, as far as the NHS are concerned, ought to be, would need to be a question posed to them. Our kind of ability to answer questions here would be about the kind of capacity challenges and whether this plan meets those, is able to be met by with the capacity challenges, etc., but not about the actual formula and the money at this stage. And apologies for that, but we can submit something written if that would be helpful to you.
Thanks, Tom. Councillor Sinclair.
Thank you. I think, Tom, that's helpful to understand. Perhaps if I would rephrase in terms of the capacity. If you can reassure the committee that the works that have been undertaken thus far in the area satisfy the demand for capacity in the future, and it includes this site that we're talking about today.
Okay. I can maybe suggest, through yourself, sorry, apologies, convener, through yourself, I can maybe suggest that my colleague Louise can answer that question, because Louise has been directly involved in that specific programme, so she'd be happy to answer that.
Okay, Ms McCallum.
Thank you, convener. Yes, so we use a rationale which is based on the number of consulting rooms, the number of registered patients, and the number of whole-time equivalent GPs and other clinicians at a practice. So that helps to inform where we are. I was not part of the original conversations with the Denny Cross practice, however, was very involved with the development as it was undertaken, which created 3 additional consulting rooms for the practice. Now, crudely, that equates to an additional 375 appointments for clinicians using those rooms, and that was done specifically with the additional capacity of 2,000 patients approximately in mind for that practice. So we feel that will satisfy the requirement. There are 3 other practices in the area also who are routinely accepting patients as well, but the contributions would be specifically in relation to the Denny Cross practice and the work undertaken already there. Thank you.
Thank you. Just on that, can I ask, although it probably does affect the actual decision of the committee, but do we have these extra consultant rooms? Do we have staff for these rooms?
If I may, convener.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, I wanted to come back in on that point specifically. The additional capacity to be able to accommodate additional patients is one thing, of course. The second thing is, of course, is having the practitioners to be able to do that. The model, of course, that we have largely in Scotland and certainly in this area, in that area, is, of course, that these are private practices, so effectively private businesses, and the private businesses will only invest in additional staff if they know that they are going to get the contract money through the GMS through for the additional patients. So in some respects, it's a bit of a chicken and an egg. So if there were to be additional patients being registered with that practice, then the practice would then invest in additional GPs and other professionals, etc. So it's like one thing follows the other, rather than the other way around. So they would be able to do it. They are quite, generally speaking, we'd say at the moment there is a confidence around about being able to recruit GPs if there is the money to do so. But that would then rather depend on the additional patient population coming.
I take your point there, thanks. Sorry, Richard.
Thank you, convener. It was just to make a point for committee. The key point in the question there was about, I think, about staff, NHS staff revenue. And obviously, revenue costs are not a part of planning obligations. You heard Richard Teed mentioning bricks and mortar. It's the same for NHS. These are for capital and infrastructure works, whether it's roads, parks. NHS, it will be bricks and mortar for their facilities. Education, it will be for their schools. So I would like to just alert members to try and discount the NHS staff revenue. That shouldn't be part of your decision making today. That's a matter for the NHS and the franchise GP practices effectively. So the contributions are for bricks and mortar, and possibly our colleagues from NHS could discuss that. I think the second thing I would say would be at your grace, convener, is that there's a lot of technical detail in the NHS, and I think if members want a sort of follow-up session on this in general, I think our NHS colleagues have offered that to try and go into plan obligations on the specifics of this, not the specific application, but just in general. And I think that was a kind offer from our colleagues, and we'd be happy to try and set that up with members. But again, not part of the decision making for this committee.
Fantastic, thank you, Richard. Bailey Kerr.
Thanks, Convener. Just a couple of questions. One's for Richard. Richard, you mentioned Denny High School and Denny Primary School. How many pupils are we anticipating for St Maudens?
St Modens, it would be a lot less than we would expect for Denny Secondary School, obviously, because it's a denominational. Just to give you an idea, for St Patrick's, we would expect 14 children, and we don't anticipate the school would have any problems with accommodating those additional pupils. So it would be there's less cohorts. So usually with secondary, it's about it's about 5/7 of that figure. So it would be about 10 to 11 kids, I think we would expect for St Modens.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I do think sorry to cut in there, Councillor. I do think Stirling Council are normally consulted on these matters anyway.
Thank you, Billy. And probably my last question is to Tom or Louise. Who would a potential new GP practice, who would they get in contact with if they were to in a position to open a new practice? Who would they contact?
Somebody want to take that on?
No bother who answers. Louise?
Hello,
Louise.
Convener. Thank you. Yes, so initially my team is the primary care contracts team, and we would deal with the administration and applications around the general medical services contract. So they would approach ourselves in the first instance. Obviously, under other circumstances, if a contract was up for advertisement, that would be in the public domain, but an initial inquiry would come through my team and then follow a process from there.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Convener.
Thanks, Billy. Councillor Coley.
Thank you. I'm unsure if this is a question or not. It probably isn't, but I think I wanted to just acknowledge and welcome the information from the NHS and Health and Social Care Partnership, because I think it is really important that we acknowledge the pressure that development does put on health services as well as education services, and that we're able to consider that in the round. And so I probably won't ask a question, but I did want to acknowledge that and to welcome the offer around a particular session around health contributions and the development, particularly as we go forward to LDP 3. I know it's a wee while away, but even thinking about how we build that and build that knowledge around health contributions, I think it's really important.
I think you're right, yeah, definitely. And as Richard said, building connection between the two teams is very important with this now. So thank you very much. Anyone else? No one else. Okay. We'll now open it to members for discussion. Councillor Sinclair.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, I think the site visit on Monday was helpful from my perspective. It's not, although I've travelled through that way quite often with certain sports activities and things like that my daughter attends at Denny High over the winter period. It's not an area I'm overly familiar with, so I think that kind of grounding helped me understand where the situation is, where the potential issues could arise. But I think the information that was provided by officers reassured me. Hope they reassured the other colleagues that were at the site visit, that what was kind of articulated at the last meeting is, although they could present challenges, I think they are absolutely overcome and mitigated where that's concerned. And I think especially the information that we got from the NHS, I think, has been very helpful in terms of laying out exactly what the position is. and the information, the additional information that's been provided to us by officers today through question has been helpful. I am more than happy to propose the officer recommendations to grant approval of this.
Just hold on to that till we've finished the discussion.
Yeah, I'm saying I'm happy to move that right now.
So smashing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Bowes.
Thank you, Convener. I wasn't at the site visit, but I knew the road really, really well. It's anybody that's in and out of Denny, as you know, will use a deer quite regularly. I knew it'd been designed. I think it was that was brought up in the first time it came up for it. The project, as has already been said, complies with LDP2. It's compliant with NPA 4. And I, with that, would happily second this application. I think it's a good application. It's been there for a while. I know there's more to come, so I appreciate there may be more pressure comes on to education and health. So we may hear from them in the future. It's taken us a wee while. It's something we've often talked about, is we should get more from, and no disrespect, but from the NHS, because infrastructure for the NHS is as important as anything else, because that's what serves our people. So I'm happy to second on that.
Thank you. Bailey Kerr.
Thanks, Convener. I take on board what my two colleagues have already stated. We had already discussed at the previous application about no being in local development plan and too premature. It'll be a sad state of affairs if we're refusing, and I'm not saying we're refusing this one, but if we're refusing applications that's in the local development plan. So, and I know the reason it's came up because it's for a full application, and I'm very supportive of what's been proposed and seconded. These applications that are in the local development plan, as already stated in the previous one, we didn't know when they're going to be developed. We didn't know when they're going to come forward. And when one does, I think we should be supporting it. I'll just rest at that.
Thanks very much. Any further comments? No. The recommendation is that the committee indicates it's minded to grant planning permission subject to conditions on page 114 to 117, which I'm happy to read out if anyone requires that, but hopefully not. I welcome this as a local councillor in Denny and Backnock, and yeah, but I think we do have to inquire into these things like NHS, schools, etc., so the public know why we are accepting these. We don't just ad hoc say, yeah, that we need these houses. We really need to look into the problems that more housing can cause, and we have in this grade. And as personally, I'm quite happy with what we've heard today. So, is anyone of a contrary position? No? Have we agreed then the recommendations?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay then, can we move on to item 6, the change of use from garage and office to Class 1A retail shop retrospective at Craig Cottage, Rovelone, Headamere, Denny, for Mr. Toby Morton, P25/0221/FUL. It's a continuation, and it's on page 79 to 92. We have a deputation. We have several deputations for this item. Mr. Raymond Duffy, objector. Mr. Stephen Russell, objector. Councillor Brian McCabe, and Mr. Bill Crawford, who is Mr. Toby Morton's agent. Do we happy to accept the deputations? Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay. Again, Officer Kevin Brown will present the report.
Thank you, Convener. As you say, this application seeks retrospective planning permission for the change of use of a detached domestic garage to form a Class 1A retail shop at Craig Cottage, Strovelone, Headamere, Denny. The retail use occupies the original garage at the site, as well as a side garden and driveway area, with the existing vehicular access to the site doubling as the main pedestrian access to the retail unit. The interior of the premises is set out, as well as the, my apologies. The application is before Planning Committee today following a call-in request from Councillor Brian McCabe to afford committee the opportunity to visit the site and to view road safety concerns. Members will see in section 4.1 of today's report that the concerns from the Roads Development Unit have been removed following the undertaking of a parking survey in the local area. Members will also see in section 6.1 that we have received 117 representations, 101 of these in support of the application, 13 neutral comments and 3 letters of objection. The points of objection are summarised in paragraph 6.1 and addressed in 7b3 of the report. In terms of policy assessment, the application is assessed as being in accordance with the development plan. The officer recommendation set out in section 9 of the report is for committee to grant planning permission subject to conditions. Thank you, Convener.
Thanks, Kevin. Any questions for Officer Brown? Anyone? No. No? Okay, thank you. Could we have the deputation, please, of first Mr. Duffy? Morning. Could you just introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Sorry, my name is Ray Duffy. I stay in Chasefield Wood, and I'm objecting to the change of use. In October of 2024, myself and the residents observed a greater than normal amount of cars parked in Chasefield Wood cul-de-sac and also a greater congestion of traffic on the Strovelone. I volunteered to contact the council as I believed the traffic and the noise was due to the operation of a new business at Craig Cottage at the top of the Strovelone called Plugs the Plants. I contacted the planning department regarding this business to see if I had planning permission to operate and whether they had granted a change of use to the garage to a shop. Bernard Whittle replied in February 2025 saying, following investigations and complaints and inspection of the property, it was considered that the business required planning established, such as the impact of the operation of the business on people, noise, disturbance, access and parking. On receipt of the applications, neighbours would be notified and an opportunity for myself to talk. I copied Bernard's email and circulated it to the neighbours in Chasefield Wood as they had requested me to do so. In August 2025, I received a message from Kevin Brown stating the applicant remained under consideration and was in process of being drawing assessment and to a conclusion. I then contacted Councillor McCabe on the 5th of October requesting an update on information, and he said it had not been on the agenda, but it was penciled in for the 14th of January 2026. But on the 17th of October, the council informed me the application was now considered to mind to grant and could be approved. I was surprised to hear this as twice Bernard had emailed to say to me I would have a chance to speak with my concerns. I requested Councillor McCabe call in the application as I felt it was a safety issue on the Strovelone as it is such a narrow road. My main concern is Plugs the Plants is now advertised as a farm shop, has no customer car park, it's a safe, no loading and unloading area for vans and incidentally no disabled parking spaces. Many customers and deliveries for the farm shop use the Drove Loan for parking. This is already a slim road, and this now reduces it to a single lane road, causing congestions and tailbacks of vehicles coming up the Drove Loan, entering Denny Road, vehicles leaving Denny Road, entering the Drove Loan, and those who wish to leave or enter Chasefield Wood itself, the cul-de-sac. This congestion, I feel, is a danger to both the public and to the users. The school buses stop at either side of the Denny Road at the Drove Road junction, and I've witnessed school children having to run the gauntlet of vehicles as they try to enter the Drove Loan. I myself have been rear-ended while waiting to enter the Drove Loan. I've witnessed the fire department have to wash down roads of spillages, police clearing grass, and emergency services treating casualties at the Drove Loan. I have observed customers themselves realising how thin the road is, park their vehicles partway on the footpath. This causes further danger to pedestrians as they are forced to use the road to pass these vehicles. If pedestrians choose to cross to the footpath on the opposite side of Pulse Plants, they then have to cross the road at the junction of Chasefield Wood and join the footpath. The footpath then runs out several yards after Plugs to Plants, and pedestrians then have to force to cross the road again. Extremely dangerous conditions for wheelchair users, parents with children in hand, or people pushing buggies. As the business has grown, so has congestion on the Drove Loan. At the point adjacent to the entrance to the Drove Loan to Chasefield Wood, the road widens a bit, but the owners and customers park on this widened area and use it as a lay-by. Again, this causes a dangerous situation for vehicles leaving Chasefield Wood now, as this leaving Chasefield Wood. Okay. Customers also park in Chasefield Wood cul-de-sac as they shop and Plugs to Plants, and this has increased the noise in the street, vehicle engines starting and stopping, vehicle doors opening and closing, boots opening and closing. Also, Chasefield Wood are all bungalows, and much of the privacy has now been lost in the bungalows as the windows in the living room and the bedrooms are all at ground level. Customers naturally look in the window as they move past, especially to see movements in the rooms. As Chasefield is also a narrow street, when customers park on the street, this restricts the residents from entering and exiting their driveways. I paid to have a white line painted on the road, hoping that customers would not block my driveway. This has only had limited effect. Customers and staff now also utilise the turning circle in Chasefield Wood cul-de-sac as a parking bay. This restricts vehicles from turning who wish to leave the cul-de-sac. This is also a safety issue, and I have seen vehicles struggling to do the U-turn and even seen some mounting pavements to complete this U-turn, causing further congestions and noise to the cul-de-sac. I requested the road report on the findings of the Drove Loan and found out that the department had now U-turned on their initial concerns, and this surprised me as only a few years ago, before Plugs to Plants was opened, the council were considering closing the Drove Loan or making a one-way system, or looking at ways to reduce the congestion due to the size of the road and the dangers of the junction. I've read the report from ADS and agree that Mr. Morton has worked hard on his business. But may I remind you that this has all been done without permission to operate, and I feel that Plugs to Plants may be circumnavigating the system to push for a case to be granted planning permission. I agree that the business does supply a service, but I also believe there are other farm shops in the area that operate with permission and have ample parking areas. I do not agree that many of the customers walk to the shop. As a pensioner of over 75 years, I'm not fully familiar with the planning department nor how it works, nor do I have the money to hire an agent to find my corner. But I do feel safety should override sales, and anything that contributes to safety should be looked at, as this could cause an accident. I also have some random photographs and clips that I would like to show if you would allow me.
Okay, thank you, sir. Have you got photos to show? No? Okay, are there any questions to Mr. Duffy? No? No questions. Right, thanks, Mr. Duffy. You can retake your seat. Thanks.
Okay.
Mr. Stephen Russell hasn't appeared, so we'll move on to Councillor Brian McCabe, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Morning, Councillor McCabe. You have 10 minutes, sir, for your
Councillor Brian McCabe, local ward member. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here. Just before I begin, you heard Mr. Duffy request that we could have a look at some photographs. I was going to do the same. However, I've just been informed that the fact that there are some registration licence plates visible, we can't show them in a public forum. I'd be more than happy to forward those photographs to committee members with the offending registration plates blacked out or redacted. What they showed, the photographs, I was pleased that the committee took the opportunity to visit the site. The site will be well known to local councillors, but perhaps not all. Intended to show some photographs just to refresh members' memory. The site's location is clearly shown to be problematic in relation to the adjacent junction at Drove Low and Glasgow Road. This is my primary concern as a local councillor, the safety implications for constituents in the ward. I have no animus towards the business whatsoever. In fact, I congratulate them on their success to date. However, this is a case of a small business developing over and above the physical constraints of the site. I wish them well, but consider the business constitutes overdevelopment of the site and the application should be refused. This isn't even a case of a shop which has just grown too big for its boots. This is a change of use. This is a residential property. This is a domestic garage which has been turned into a business. I'm delighted that the business has been so successful, but entirely down to its locality, the safety issues are overriding. I was given a copy of supporting document submitted highlighting in support of the move to grant a change of use. And within the document, it admits here, I'll quote from it, historically caused congestion problems at busy times and has been known to be instrumental in the cause of numerous accidents at this junction over the years. So it's already been identified within supporting documentation that there are problems with this junction. Exiting from this junction is not easy as visibility is seriously impeded. I'm not inventing this. This is in support of the application. Also contained within the supporting documentation is that it's to do with Chasefield Wood opposite, that there's 12 single-storey properties and a lay-by for a maximum of 6 vehicles. That's periphery to this application. The fact that that happens to be adjacent to this site shouldn't even enter into it. It's not a material consideration as far as the change of use is concerned. Which then brings me on to parking provision and access at Craig Cottage. Already it's been identified again within the supporting document that the applicant's vehicles consist of an electric van and a passenger car, which are parked within the 2 bays within the site. These are the applicant's own vehicles. The future plan is to replace the current diesel-powered passenger car with an electric vehicle, and this will necessitate having to provide 2 spaces on the drive. So the 2 spaces that are there are going to disappear. So we're going to make the problem worse. There have been a number of traffic incidents at the Drove Lawn, immediately adjacent to the site. as Mr. Duffy alluded to, 2 bus stops there where kids from all of the schools, Denny High School and primary schools, and whatever, are dropped off there regular. And it is a rat run. I drive that virtually daily, going across the Bank Knock or heading into Glasgow, whatever. It is a rat run there. You get kids dropped off at bus stops either side, whether they're going to school, whether they're coming back from school. They're trying to dodge across a busy enough road anyway, Glasgow Road, development you're talking about, further along. Well, there's about three or four developments happening there just now, and we're going to have something like 11 or 1,200 new houses all built within this local area. The traffic on there is going to increase. So these kids are having to negotiate Glasgow Road to get to this busy junction. And unfortunately, I mean, because we haven't been able to display the photographs, I'm more than happy to pass them on. What you see within the photographs is cars parked on the curb. So we're closing down the narrowness. If you've got a pram, you'll never be able to get past. That then means at this problematic junction, you're having to negotiate across the Drove Lawn to come across and then cross over the busy Glasgow Road to try and get back down the Glasgow Road or whatever. Photographs indicate parking on the pavement while deliveries are taking place outside the site. There's a photograph showing a delivery van there. And what you then get is it decreases the Drove Lawn down to a single lane. I was interested to hear Mr. Duffy say he was rear-ended turning into the Drove Lawn from Glasgow Road. I'm not surprised at that, because I use it, as I say, just about every day. And you drive up there, you're going to turn left into Drove Lawn, into what you're hoping is going to be a free exit out. You turn round there, and what you've got is traffic coming towards you in the wrong lane, only because of traffic parked outside where this business is, either parked on the pavement or parked 3 or 4 cars behind it. It forces all of the cars approaching the Glasgow Road junction onto the wrong carriageway. That then causes issues on the main Glasgow Road. Just to close, it states that the applicant's business has not contributed to these accidents. That's a bit of a stretch, if you like. I'm not saying that they are the cause of the accident, but they don't help the situation where these accidents have occurred. It's been pointed out the applicant's application site roundabout it, the roads are not subject to any parking restrictions. That's maybe a question that should be asked of the council's roads teams. It states again in support, two spaces can be provided within the application site, which can be used for customers during the opening hours. Well, you've already heard the intention is to move to these electric vehicles. Those 2 spaces disappear. So in future, we're going to make the situation worse. So in closing, basically what I would say is this isn't even a business that was set up what it was. And as I say, I've got great admiration for the people who, trying to create a wee business. They had a domestic garage which they turned in. The business has moved on. It's moved on so much that they talk about, again within the supporting documentation, their customers are business.
Can I just say, Councillor, you've 1 minute left.
Yeah, thank you, convener. Their customers are businesses, residential care homes, and nurseries. This is it's a good business. I'm delighted for them. I'd love to see them in Falkirk High Street. I'd love to see them somewhere where, businesses come and set up. It's a cottage industry that's come on a cottage. It's come on the back of a cottage. It's developed. It's overdeveloped. And if you approve it, we're going to cause additional problems to this already problematic junction. Billy Buchanan, unfortunately, he's not here today, but he's always had a wee kind of bee in his bonnet about the Drove Lone itself, the full road. It is a walking route to Denny High School. It is only a single pavemented. It's only pavemented on one side. It's a very narrow road at the best of times. And I've been contacted 3 or 4 times by people who live just along from the business about speeding and if I could do anything.
Can I just say, Councillor, your
I've got
time's
to do
up.
that. Thanks, Convener. That'll do me. Happy to take any
Thanks very
questions.
much. Any questions? Councillor Sinclair.
Just the one, Councillor McCabe. Just a moment ago, you said that the Drove Lone is single pavemented. Can you confirm it's single pavemented outside the application area, directly outside the application area?
Do you want to call up the?
No, you've just told us as a committee that it's single pavemented, the Drove Lone. I'm looking at a Google map here that suggests there is a pavement on both sides of the road, right outside the application area.
Where does the pavement end?
It goes from, by the looks of it, according to this map that I've got in front of me,
Yep.
and Bailey Kerr sitting next to me will confirm, it goes from the Glasgow Road entrance on the Drove Lone all the way to effectively the entrance to the houses just before Drove Lone Crescent. So
right.
So it's not accurate to say that Drove Lone is fully single pavemented.
I never said it was fully single pavemented. I said it was single pavemented.
Yes.
80%, 90% of a Drove
No,
Lone
that's-
is single pavemented.
I'm glad you've clarified.
I've clarified it, yeah.
So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for asking the question.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other questions? No. Thanks, Councillor McKay, for your time.
Thanks, Convener.
Sorry, Convener, my
Sorry.
hand is up. So, hi, Brian. Not meaning to be difficult, but you
No,
talked
not
about
at all,
electric- I know you spoke about electric cars. You get big electric cars, you get small. I think the Renault 5 is the latest in electric cars, which is a very small car. So I appreciate what you said, that sometimes electric cars can be bigger, but obviously we don't know which type of vehicle the people are going to use on it. So I don't know that putting an electric car in is going to take away the 2 driving places you're talking about. Would you agree with that if they've got a small electric car?
No, unfortunately, I wouldn't, Councillor Bowes. What I'm getting to is the fact that you'll need charging points for the 2 electric cars, and the 2 cars will be parked in the 2-park drive. What I'm saying is, if you put in 2 cars, I don't care how big they are, you're not going to be able to use it for customer experience, shall I say. So all I'm getting at is, you're losing the parking space. It's already lost anyway. I don't believe, again, I can't say 100%, but I don't believe that customers actually go in, park their car, go in, buy stuff, and then come out into their car. I don't know.
All right, it was a small point.
No, I
That was all
appreciate
right.
it, Gary. Not a problem, not an issue.
Okay, anyone else?
Thank you. Thanks, Convener.
Oh, thanks, Councillor. Can we have Mr. Bill Crawford, please, agent for the owner? Morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could you just identify yourself and your position?
Yes, I'm Bill Crawford. I'm acting as agent for Mr. Toby Morton in this particular application.
Thank you.
It's an interesting one. Both representations previously mentioned the garage as being a domestic garage. Well, in actual fact, it was used as a commercial car repair garage a number of years ago. And the reason I know this is that my neighbour at home across the drive, that was her first house when she got married, and her husband operated a car repair business, and that's why it has a 3.5 metre wide by 3.5 metre high roller shutter door. And it also has an inspection pit, which has been covered over but still there. I take on board the comments about the traffic. It is indeed a busy road, but the density of the traffic has reduced considerably since the Denny link road has been put in. The other point to consider as well with the operation of the business, it is a husband and wife operation with their young son who's only 8 years old. And you'll notice in the report that I prepared a supporting document, the opening hours are purposely restricted because as a family, they need a family life as well. So they don't open until 9:30 in the morning purposely, because they know that there are school children, and also it's a busy time for people getting to work, etc. So there's a reason why it opens at 9:30 and it closes at 5 o'clock. So it doesn't contribute to any going to work traffic. They're closed all day on a Tuesday, and at the weekends are only open for a few hours on Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon. And the reason for that, again, is they have a family life. They don't have any employees, it's just the two of them. The other interesting thing is that the business, this last wee while since the application has gone in, they've been able to do a sort of an assessment of the customer base, and it's quite interesting. On average, about 30% of the customers come on foot. Some come on bikes. Not all customers come using cars. And the other thing that you're probably not aware of is that the delivery service that they provide is done usually out of the business hours, and there's about 30% of their business is making deliveries of fruit and veg. Now, how they get their fruit and veg is by the Glasgow Fruit Market, and Mr. Morton goes there about 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. The electric van is absolutely silent. There's no clanging gates. Their gate is operated electrically. And he is home by usually about 5 o'clock, and nobody's really aware. He doesn't unload the van then. He unloads the van after their opening hours. So the other businesses that they support that give them their supplies are all very small based, and they either come in passenger cars like a Volvo Estate or a small van. There's no Arctic units turn up for 8-wheelers or anything like that. So it's very much, has been alluded to, very much a cottage type business, and they do support many other local businesses as well, which you'll see if we've read my supporting statement. So really, I think that's probably as much as I can say at the moment. And
thanks very much, Mr. Crawford. Then any questions to Mr. Crawford? No? Sorry, Ms. Bowes, Councillor Bowes.
Thank you, Convener. Mr. Crawford, can you? I'm never ever a real big fan of retrospective planning applications, but I suspect there's a story behind how the business has grown to get to this point. Can you tell me how it got to that point that it now requires a planning application?
Right. Well, when the clients moved into the property, because of the garage that was there before, they wrongly assumed that it had a history of being used commercially, and that selling some plants and fruit and veg wouldn't be a great issue. But obviously there were complaints, and that's when they were visited by the planning department to confirm that a retrospective application would be the thing to make.
Okay, so it was an assumption that it was already a commercial unit?
Yes.
Right, okay, that assists.
Yeah, when you look at the size of the garage, and there is an actual office at the front, not many, I don't know any domestic situations where you have an office for parking private cars. So that this was used, and you can see internally there was all sorts of evidence that had been used as a repair garage.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Forrest, please.
Thanks, Mr. Crawford. You've said about this garage. Can you tell us when it stopped being used, or if it was in fact used as a commercial garage, or was this maybe a hobby, a guy fixing it on the side, etc.? Was it a commercial garage, and if so, when it stopped being used as that, and when this actual selling a few plants, etc., started?
Right, Mr. Crawford. According to my neighbour, she left that property when her husband died, and that was in the 1990s. And she recalls working in the evenings, packing up garage equipment, because they used to not only repair cars, but they supplied the motor trade with tools and equipment. And she used to get that ready for loading up the van the next morning. And the reason it had an office was because customers came in, picked up their car, and paid their bill.
Right. But it didn't have it didn't have permission to act as a commercial property.
I've had a look through the records and I can't see any evidence of it. But we're talking about a building that was probably built in the mid-1970s, with evidence of the construction. And what was the other question you asked me?
When the current owners started using it as a small shop to sell plants, etc.
Yeah, well, that started when they moved in December 2021.
It's been going a few years. Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you. Councillor Flynn.
Yep, thank you, Convener. It's just a quick question, Mr. Crawford. You mentioned that 30% of the business's customers walk by foot or bicycle, but so how many customers approximately would you say the business has? And because somebody must have calculated that number.
I couldn't give you an exact figure. Although I visited the site on a number of occasions, and there can be quite a few customers in by car or by foot, but it's not one of these businesses where you've got a consistent stream. It is a small business, and there can be sometimes when it can be quite busy, other times of just one or two customers, and then you can have big gaps in between where there's nobody. It's just.
No, I understand that. Yeah, thank you. It's just that you mentioned that 30% of customers came by foot, so therefore somebody must have calculated the customers over a month or a week or whatever, an average.
That was the applicant. I asked them to have a sort of survey of who comes, how they come, etc. So that was the element I was given there.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Councillor Flynn. Anyone else? Any questions for Mr. Crawford? No? Okay. Thanks, Mr. Crawford, for your time and your submission. Officer Brown, would you like to comment on what you've heard from the submissions?
Yeah, I think most of it's covered within the report. What I would say is that just to clarify that we don't have any planning history in relation to a garage use being consented on the site previously. So that's just to make sure you are aware of that. And we do have the roads officials on the call today as well to answer any questions in respect to road safety aspects.
Okay. Thank you. Bailey Kerr.
Thanks, Convener. And Mr. Brown must have read my mind, because I've 2 or 3 questions for anybody for roads. Is it Gary? Hi, Gary. Having visited the site on Monday, it gave me a better understanding of the area, the side road, the junction at the Glasgow Road. So as been mentioned I think it's by Councillor McCabe and the director, Mr Duffy, that there's been accidents in the area. Can you confirm how many accidents there has been, Gary, please?
Yeah, thanks, Bailey Kerr. So yourself, convener. So we obtain what's called Stats 19 data from Police Scotland, Bailey Kerr. So, and that data that we obtain is what's called PIA. So it's where accidents have personal injuries. So we only obtain accident data where there has been personal injuries. And over the last 10 years, there has been one in that section of the Drove loan, and it happened in 2016. So obviously prior to the application commencing retrospectively. So there has been one on that stretch of the Drove loan from the junction to the A872 Glasgow Road and into the houses on the south. One accident over the last 10 years that happened in 2016.
Thank you. So a recorded accident if somebody's injured. So we don't record anything that doesn't come into an injury.
That's correct, Bailey Kerr. So what we do is, as I'm sure you will remember for executive last year when we had our new road safety plan approved, we prioritise road safety schemes on three main criteria. So accident statistics that we obtain for Police Scotland, obviously, that are personal injury accidents. We look at speeds as well, and we also include local knowledge. So our network officers within engineering design are responding to customer inquiries and complaints every day. There's probably 30 there at the moment. Over the next couple of days, it will be answered by the teams. And these are things like people with queries and concerns about road safety issues, with congestion, with parking. So what we do is there's third criteria within the road safety prioritisation is on local knowledge. So we add in that element as well. So if we are aware that there's a lot of incidents and accidents and people complaining about different bits and bobs over the years, we provide that with a higher rating, obviously, than other areas that haven't had that kind of concern raised over through customer inquiries.
Thanks, Gary. My next question is, and it was asked at the site visit, but just for clarity and so everybody can hear, regarding the white lines over somebody's drive, I could have phoned your mum and asked your mum right enough, because that was a scenario you gave us regarding the legislation regarding white lines over drives.
Yes, so just to clarify, I'm aware that you don't know my mother personally, but yes, that was the scenario. That was the scenario I provided on site. So, I think Mr. Duffy provided a statement on what we call an access protection marking, so a white line over driveways within his deputation request. And these access protection markings, for everybody the committee's benefit, are they are not an enforcement possibility. So in terms of the enforcement over a driveway is obstruction, and Police Scotland are the authority that would be responsible for enforcing any obstruction. So parking on a WL line doesn't necessarily mean that there is an issue in terms of legality and something that Police Scotland can enforce. It's more the issue of obstruction. Somebody can't get in or out of a driveway.
Thanks, Gary. And my last point with regards to, was mentioned by Councillor McCabe regarding the parking area for the application. What is the legal requirement and what is the proposal? Is the proposal fit for the application?
Yeah, so through yourself again, convener, thanks, Bailey Kerr. So in terms of in-curtilage parking, a property like this where we have a residential property and a business in it, for the residential property we would look for 2 in-curtilage parking spaces, and also for the business of that size. So for the class of use of that application, we kind of create a parking requirement on a square meterage of the property. So in terms of the business use, that also requires 2. So in total 4 in curtilage parking spaces is something that we would hope to have there on site. Obviously, as Councillor McCabe and the applicant's agent has noted, that's not possible. So there is 2 within the curtilage of the site, and that is why our Roads Development Control team carried out 3 surveys over a time period, over different days at different times, to understand where people are parking, the number of people that are, like the applicant's agent noted, walking or cycling to the business, and also where people are parking. So are there enforcement issues, such as are people parking on the footways, which is obviously a legislative issue which we can enforce now, or are they parking over driveways that are obviously an obstruction issue that Police Scotland could enforce. So through these, the 3 surveys that we carried out, parking was suitable. So there is obviously, as you'd have noted on site, there is a wider area that drove Loan. I think the junction between the Drove Loan and the A872 Glasgow Road is about 65-70 metres away, and there's an area between there where the carriageway widens that does have suitable parking spaces for 2 or 3 places. And there is obviously Chasefield Wood, which has also no on-street waiting restrictions. So probably just in addition to that, and something that Councillor McCabe picked up on, was that there was no WA lines in the area, and probably most of these in the committee would have been provided by a response by ourselves over the years to state why that there's no WA lines at specific areas, and we implement waiting restrictions and WA lines, single year lines, in line with the road safety prioritisation. So that area is not noted at this moment in time as a road safety concern, hence why there is no on-street parking restrictions. I would also add, I know the Drove Loan very well as well, and it's not a great road. We are looking at making improvements to that for safe routes to school, and that's a longer term project, but that is there. It's in the kind of the plans at the moment that we are looking to do that, as well as the fact that for me personally, parked cars are seen as the first kind of port of natural traffic management. So if there is speeding concerns, and if there is parked cars, we would hope the parked cars mitigate that. Obviously, you do then need to take the consideration of the balance with congestion at that junction. But like the applicant's agent noted, the shop opens and closes before these kind of busy periods. So yeah, sorry, long-winded, but I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. And that was going to be my last question, but you highlighted something there, Gary. Have the roads department any concerns regarding this application?
In terms of overall, we obviously had initial concerns about parking and curtilage, but at this moment in time, after the survey that we carried out, obviously due to the retrospective nature of it, we're content with the parking use for this application. Bailey Kerr.
Thank you very much, Ms McGregor. Thanks, Convener.
Thanks, Barry. Councillor Sinclair.
Thank you, Convener. Just a couple of questions, and I think these more directed at roads than they are planning officers. So, Gary, if you can hang on for just another couple of seconds, that'd be great. The report states that the objections from those department have been removed due to the parking survey that went on. And I know at sites on Monday you spoke about observations that were done in the area. I wonder if you could explain a bit more about that in terms of especially around about the kind of high traffic times that were observed, and the flow of traffic that was observed at that point, the number of customers that were accessing the business, and perhaps even if there was any kind of on the spot determinations made on Monday in relation to the flow of traffic whilst our bus was parked there as well.
Yeah, through yourself, Convener. Thanks, Councillor Sinclair. So, in terms of our 3 surveys, first and foremost, we carried out a survey on Wednesday, the 10th of September, between 3 and 4 p.m, Friday, the 12th of September, between 12:30 and 1:30 p.m, and also Monday, the 15th of September, between 3:30 and 4:30 in the afternoon. So, on the first visit, there were 7 total visitors and 7 cars. 2 were parked in the wider part of the Drove Loan where cars passed them with no issue. and 5 cars were parked in Chasefield Wood with no issue in terms of obstruction to driveways. On the Friday visit, the second visit, there was 8 total visitors with 7 cars. 3 were parked in the Drove Loan, where the kind of right outside the boundary of the application. There were minor waiting of cars behind that, similar to probably what we'd have seen on Monday at sites, Councillor Sinclair, and the other cars were parked in Chasefield Wood. And in the third visit, there were 10 total visitors with 7 cars. 3 were parked in the wider part of the Drove Loan, where cars passed with no issue, and 4 cars were parked in Chasefield Wood, and both on street and causing no obstruction. And I hope that answers your question, Councillor Sinclair.
Yeah, thanks. It does. I think, and to my dismay, Bailey Kerr's asked most of the questions that I had in my mind in relation to incidents where that's concerned. We don't have any data in terms of insurance claims from incidents, not just personal injury.
So yourself, Convener, no, we don't, Councillor Sinclair, so it's not something I'm aware of, obviously. That's kind of dealt with private if cars, rear end each other and that goes through that area. I'm not entirely sure if we could obtain that data, but it's certainly something I can look into it with the meeting.
Okay, no, that's great. Thank you, Convener.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions to the officers? No. Okay, thank you. So now we'll open up for discussion. Does anyone have anything they wish to say at present on this matter? And again, Councillor Forrest.
Thank you. I know the Drove Loan pretty well. I used to be a delivery driver and I used that road thousands of times. And I'll be perfectly honest, compared to then and now, and it's not anything to do with the shop, I would prefer not to use that road at all. It's not a good road. I don't like it. And to be honest, I'll give it a wide berth at every turn. But I understand where the objectors are coming from. Anything that impedes flow of traffic is always a pain, right? More so if you have to live beside it. But I've been looking at the objections and the submissions in writing. There were 117 letters came in, and out of that, 101 were actually in favour. That surprised me. I'll be perfectly honest. And then I looked at the actual comments, and in support, the middle one was that there is always safe parking, is always available if needed. But in the bottom one, in the objections, the first one that's on it is lack of parking and associated safety, road safety and congestion concerns. So I've got a wee mixed feelings about this one. But that's all I wanted to say at this time.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else wish? Councillor Sinclair.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Again, this what we viewed on Monday at the site visit was almost given that we know the issues around about the Drove Loan. We went through the safety aspect of the Drove Loan when we were talking about home to school transport a couple of years ago. So we know that there are issues and traffic issues in that area. But what my observations were on Monday was that it's quite safely managed by the number of vehicles that are passing through that way. And while we were there, there were customers coming in and out the business that didn't seem to impact on what my view would be the ability for people to safely walk up and down those pavements. The traffic seemed to manage itself. Convener, you and I took a walk up Chasefield Wood, where there seemed to be ample amount of space for people to be able to walk past. Similarly, the road is of a nature that I thought that, and I described a situation where in another part of Scotland, where it was a similar situation right next to a primary school, where parents parked in this tiny wee cul-de-sac. So there was a lot of movement at that point in that area, but it was all safely done and safely managed, because I think people are more inclined to watch out when there are things, when there are objects in the way, shall we say. All of that said, and I understand where some of the objections are coming from, because obviously any kind of disruption that would suggest that there is a safety issue or an impending safety issue is obviously a concern. But I think I'm reassured by what officers, especially in the roads department, have said in terms of the level of accidents and incidents, barring any personal experience. That's because I think that if a personal experience is present in someone's mind there, that's happened to them. I see no issue in granting this. That's where my head is right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else? Any contribution to make? No? Okay. We'll move on to the recommendation. It's recommended that Planning Committee grant the planning permission subject to the conditions below on pages 80 to 81. The development hereby approved shall be implemented in accordance with the plans itemised and informative below and forming part of the permission, unless a variation is required by a condition of the permission, or a non-material variation has been agreed in writing by Falkirk Council as planning authority. This permission shall be valid for a limited period until the 31st of August 2030. And at that time, unless further permission is granted, the site shall be vacated and reinstated as a domestic garage and garden driveway area associated with Craig Cottage. Do we accept the recommendation, or does anyone have a contrary view? No? So we agreed that we accept the recommendation. Thank you.
I think we've still got to have a seconder, Councillor Kelly. I think Councillor Sinclair proposed it, didn't he?
Yeah.
But we need a seconder. So I'd be quite happy to second it.
Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry. We're going to have a 5-minute break. So we'll report back about 20 past. Okay, good afternoon and welcome back to the meeting. We move on now to item 7, which is the construction of dwelling house and associated development at land to the northwest of 1 Bloom Farm Steading, Falkirk, with Mr. Doug Sinclair. The report will be by Officer Julie Seedle Gregory. Julie.
Thank you, Convener. If we're able to, can we see the plans and the photographs for this proposal? Thank you. So this application relates to planning permission for the construction of a detached dwelling house and a 0.2 hectare site to the northwest of Avon Bridge. The proposed dwelling house would be located in the north of the application site, with access taken from an access track to the south. The proposed house is shown as being single-storey and of contemporary design. Some members will be familiar with the application site, as previous applications, as detailed at section 3 of your report, have come before the Planning Committee. The application is referred to Planning Committee today in accordance with the Council scheme of delegation. This is because the application is recommended for approval contrary to the development plan. The planning assessment is with specific reference to the principle of development in the rural area, the impact on a local landscape area, sustainable transportation and tackling the climate emergency and nature crisis. The full policy assessment is detailed at section 7A of your report. In this case, the planning history of the site establishes the principle of residential development and is a strong material planning consideration, which in this case outweighs the development plan and supports this proposed development. In effect, this application is an amendment to house type, which is born from ground conditions at the site, which resulted in the change in position and a scaling down of the design, as you see before you. The application is recommended for approval, subject to the planning conditions at section 9 of your report. Thank you, Convener.
Thanks very much, Julie. Any questions to the officer? No questions. Thank you, Billy. Okay. Okay. If there's no questions, then we'll move on to discussion by the committee. Do the committee have any items to talk about with this? Billy Kerr.
No items. Convener, I think it's straightforward. In my view, the reason why it's back here because it's a change of house type and the scaling down of the initial application that was passed by the Plan Committee in 2022. I propose that we concur with the planning officer's recommendations. I would move that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anything? Gary? Yeah, sorry, Councillor Bowes.
That's fine. Answer to both and others. I totally agree with Billy Kerr and would be delighted to second them.
Thank you. Billy Kerr. Have you something else here? Oh, sorry. Okay. Historic. Okay, so the recommendation, it's recommended Planning Committee grant permission subject to the conditions in page 199101. And do we agree with the recommendation? We've had a proposal and a second. Agreed. Okay, agreed. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the final item, item 8. Falkirk Council on-street parking space for disabled persons. Various streets 18. Order 20 TRO stroke DB stroke 25 stroke 043. And I believe Craig Russell, the network coordinator, will be.
Morning, Convener. It'll actually be myself.
Right.
So thanks very much. This report before you as a planning committee is on page 103 in your papers. and it concerns an application for a disabled person's parking space on Rowan Crescent in Tamford Hill. In terms of the council scheme of delegation, the decision requires to be made by a committee as there are 2 unresolved objections received to the making of the order. In terms of the legislation, the authority requires to consider all objections made and not withdrawn before making the order. An application was received by a qualified person and a suitable location was identified for the space. This is shown on page 107 of your report. 2 objections were received and responded to. These are detailed on 109 and 110 of your report. The objections have not been removed, hence this report being placed before you with the recommendation to proceed with the order. Members are asked to consider the terms of the report, including the objections, and determine whether the order should be made. And I'm happy to take any questions, Convener.
Thank you. Are there any questions to the officer? Pierre?
Thanks, Convener. I'm on Google Maps and it's showing the area of Rowan Crescent. So where the black mark is on page 107, then you've got like a half circle as a planting area. Then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces next to that. One of them looks as if there is a blue badge area already designated there. Gary, why did we not think of that area instead of the other side where it's highlighted in black? Because there are already parking bays there.
Through yourself, Convener. So I think the disabled bay that you're looking at on Google Maps to the north of the planted bay is potentially another disabled bay within that kind of cul-de-sac of Rowan Crescent, Tamford Hill. So that's also been applied for by a qualified person, looked at, the area's been surveyed, and that's where that person parks, hence obviously the previous disabled person's parking space. This one was obviously for another user within the area who, when we carried out surveys, they do park in a similar area, obviously to the south of that planter, hence the location of this advisory bay that's been marked so far.
I've not got any objections to it, Convener. I'm just looking at the Google map and I'm thinking to get away from the objection, did the officer not think about putting it in where, because there's 4 parking bays there right next to the planter. But as Mr. McGregor's already stated, they've took a survey on the area. But I was just asking whether
fair question. I think Gary's answered it to your satisfaction, yeah. Any further questions for Officer McGregor? No. Okay. Thank you. So we've been asked to consider the terms of the report, including objections, and determine whether the order should or should not be made. I recommend it should be made. Is anyone otherwise minded? Okay, thanks very much for your time. Seconded by the Provost. Okay, everyone, thanks very much for your time today. That's the end of today's meeting. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, Convener.